thank you for attending today. We're going to be talking about listening, and as long as you answer all the questions, you'll be marked down for attendance. It'll also help you to answer those questions for your exam. I know you're probably thinking, why does listening fit into that top tier of things that we talk about in terms of being better operating in a group as an individual? And that's a great question. It turns out that all the literature states, and a lot of literature outside our domain really states that listening is the number one problem with communication. It's the number one reason that people in the group don't really understand what to do. And it also turns out to be a huge eroding force in the bonding of a group toward that relationship side. It's also a pretty amazing tool for you personally. So if you figure out how to listen well and you identify some of those problems in listening, that's going to be a major success in your student life as well as your professional life. Because with good listening, you'll always have great friends, and lots of them. And with great listening, you'll also be able to retain information at a level that most people can't. So definitely listen up, and you're going to learn a lot about listening. I also wanted to bring up another key point about the importance of listening here, and go for reading some of these quotes by some important people about the importance of listening. But another key difference between groups that have good listeners and groups that don't is that they're able to simultaneously succeed at the two usually conflicting goals of a group. So remember last lecture when I talked about that heart and that dollar sign that were on the fulcrum? Those two goals of a group of bonding and building that many times conflict. If you're able to listen well, you really build up the ego of all the people in the group, not in a selfish way, but you really do help them to connect with the people around them. It's an amazing way to make friends, make people feel valuable, and identify their strengths. But you also are retaining the information in a way that you wouldn't have before. So if you're doing the listening correctly, you're not only getting the most valuable advice for moving forward toward your results, but you're also really creating a sense of loyalty and companionship in the group. So it's the best way to do that, and overall, listening is going to be one of the most valuable tools you ever find for group success. Cool. So what topics do we have for today? I kept it really simple. We're going to talk about the actual mechanical process, the listening process. We're going to talk about memory, which is information retention, noise, which is obstacles, and finally we're going to talk about skills. Skills, how can you be a better listener? We also will do a quick review so that everyone feels comfortable and ready for that exam. Give you a few tips there. So let's jump right in. Alright, the process. So there are 3 steps to the process. A lot of people will put memory as the 4th step. Let's just keep it simple. 3. Sensing, attending, and understanding. So these are each different components of the listening process. We start off with sensing. Now sensing is a very physical, mechanical process. So this could be related to having a sensor on a computer. Sensing is being able to feel if you're supposed to be feeling a stimuli. It's being able to smell if you need to be able to smell. Any component of that message, if you're not built so that you can get it, if you have any type of problem where something's getting in the way so that you're not actually receiving the stimuli in the first place, then you have a sensing problem. So that's why I've got Wally up here. Imagine if one of Wally's eye sensors, one of his cams there, got knocked off. He would have to replace that before he had full sensing ability. This can boil down to, it's the simplest of the process. This can boil down to going in and getting your ears flushed out so that you can actually, get the stirrup and hammer and whatnot working in there. It could boil down to getting a smaller table so you can actually hear the people that you need to hear during your meeting. It could be that it could be that you're not actually experiencing the same things as the rest of your group because you're dressed in a way that you don't feel the same environment as them. So you can think of different ways to make sure that you have full sensing ability. You can see, hear, touch everything that everyone else is, and you'll add to your communication. So once you have all these stimuli rushing in, and this is pretty amazing about the human body, we've got hundreds of thousands of different messages being sent at us all the time. We have to find a way to make sense of that, and typically what we do is we throw away tons and tons of information. So the key is to find what is important about all of the things we're receiving right now. For instance, you probably haven't thought for about 10 years about how your little toe feels, but since I mentioned that, it might be something that you would attend to at this point because you might be invested in this lecture or not. But you also probably don't think about the way that the clock is ticking unless you're thinking about time. And all of these different messages that come to us are evaluated in some way so that we're able to attack our current situation, and it's usually based on our past experiences. So how intense is the speaker? What importance is this going to have for my results? What importance does this have for what's important to me, including my emotions, my affect? And that's another big thing, is that we are amazing machines. We're much more complex than a supercomputer. The vast majority, much more than 90% of our brains is made up of neurons that are devoted to subconscious thinking. So it's not something that we're logically putting together in a mechanical way like we would with calculating a number, but it's this giant, vast, always operating affective system. It's emotional. It's thinking through things and deciding how we should react. So the only way that we can steer that is by rationally thinking about what we need to learn. And it's important to give credibility to the people that are in your team to the point where you're actually taking in the information they have to provide. Alright, finally, once you've identified, once you've received the message, you've decided it's important enough to get in the first place, then you come to understanding. And this can be a roadblock for people that aren't making connections to the past. They aren't bringing in different things that they know or theory. They're not putting things in context. If you're not thinking about where the person is coming from and empathizing with them, you might not be getting the full message. So it's really important to try to understand something using all of the tools you have. If you have, let's say someone is talking to you about a marketing plan, and they happen to be a really detail-driven person, you might be able to determine that they're trying to stress to you that the details are really important, but they're not necessarily putting in a particular vision for the message, and they might be really asking for help with that. So what you want to be able to do is grasp full understanding by interpreting the same way that the other person would. And then adding your own interpretation onto that so that you can have an enriching conversation that's more valuable than if you were apart. That's kind of one of the main goals of group communication, is to create something better than you could alone. So really striving to understand by asking more questions, recalling recalling past experiences that you can apply, and past knowledge you can apply. Just make sure that you're on the same page. Like here, these people clearly have different roles, and one of them is clearly not adept in the skill. The manager is not adept in the skill. So they have this major miscommunication, but they're not willing to understand. So always keep your mind open to that. Alright. Now, again, when we talk about memory, we're talking about information retention. So this crazy name up here, this guy did a study mostly on students where they had a particular amount of information was given. Like, for instance, let's use the example of this lecture, right? 24 hours later, 60% of all that information is gone. There's no, no coming back. So, and then diminishing returns throughout those 5 days so that it's all the way down to 20%. Now you can see that that information was well encoded. So they were able to recall that particularly important information, but the problem is that there's probably information in the rest of that amount that was very valuable that's completely lost. So it's very important to stay organized to the point where you can write down anything that you would need to know, or you can type it down or have it recorded in some way, and also go back and revisit that thought, applying it to different things that you know. And if you can do that, you're going to be able to remember the important messages. Another way to go about that would be to place down this information using a mnemonic scheme. So like there are different ways that you can memorize things. If you can memorize the key points, you'll be good to go. Alright, and let's talk about noise. I have a clip to illustrate after this, but noise boils down to any problem that you have, any additional sound, like it could be sound, like unwanted sound, but noise in a group is actually wider than that. So it can consist of anything that's in the way of the message. If you're too far apart, if you forgot to bring materials, if you have a cultural event that's going on at the same time as your meeting, anything that will detract from the here-ness of the group can cause problems. A lot of times, especially in our culture today, we find people are totally distracted from one another in a way that detracts from any message that we could be communicating. A lot of our nonverbals are fairly offensive to others now because we're not engrossed in the other person. This is a major factor in bonding. Like for instance, the founder of Mary Kay said, if you look at a person, you should imagine every person having a necklace that kind of on it says, "Make me feel important," and that is a basic human need. If you're able to meet that need, you'll be able to always have friends and friends that want to help. So if we can just take away the distractions that are rude to others, and we can also take away those distractions from our groups, we're going to have a lot better communication. And here's an example clip of physical noise.
I can't find my earring. Oh, here it is.
Hey, listen, can I borrow your suitcases?
Yeah, it's in your closet.
No, I looked.
They're behind my skis and my tennis racket.
Thanks, buddy.
Where you going?
Well, I'm getting out of town. I'm going to visit Madeline for the weekend. You know, this place is looking kind of messy. What happened to Cindy?
She's here. She just didn't get around to it.
Hi, Kramer. Thanks, Jerry. Bye.
Oh, what's the matter?
What did I just pay for?
Oh, you're a John.
Coco. Well, it's probably the most intelligent ape there is.
Yeah. So? How's Cindy the maid?
Everything's going great, except basically I'm paying for sex.
Tell me about it. I went out with this girl last week. First I had to pay for dinner.
No, George, she's coming over and not cleaning. It's like I'm seeing a prostitute.
How much you pay this man?
40.
40? I'm paying 60 to my maid. She doesn't do laundry, and I'm getting nothing.
Yeah.
Once she pinched my ass, but I don't know what that was.
I don't know what this is.
Jerry, you wouldn't believe what it's like down there. Taxi cab drivers are insane. You know, everybody is in a hurry.
Look, I can't eat with you leaning over like this. Just look straight forward.
Well, now I can't see Jerry.
I look about the same.
What?
I was talking to him.
What?
Never mind.
What do you say? Never mind.
Jerry.